Right, so let's start off with addresses or address books more specifically. So obviously a big part of your customer's ability to purchase from you is the ability to choose what address they want it to go to. So the easiest way of doing this, as I'm sure most of you know, even if you're quite a basic Infigo user, is that you can apply addresses to customers. So within their actual customers entry within customer management. So if you need to do this as an administrator, there's an addresses tab, and then you can put addresses for individual customers. Alternatively, you can assign addresses to groups, or you can, or the customer can do it themselves as they're going through the checkout process, of course. So as with any e-commerce platform that you would expect, going through the checkout flow, you can put in a billing and a shipping address. Now, one of the other functionalities that was brought in not too recently, but recently enough, is the address books. So this is the ability to actually efficiently manage a large number of addresses on any of your individual storefronts. You can add numerous addresses to any number of different address books, and then you can associate those address books with different groups, such as departments or customer roles. So what this setup does is it ensures that customers only have access to the addresses you want to grant them, but it means that you can assign multiple addresses at once. So you don't just have to give them a very slowly created list of addresses and then review it for every individual user. You could just, if you need to edit an address book, you can do it in one operation for all users that have it. Now, address books are set up within their own section within Infigo, and it comes in two different sections. So there's the creation of the different address books themselves, and then there's a creation of the customers within those address books. And for both of those, you have the ability to create them manually, or you can import them via CSV. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because we've got a lot of things to go through, but just to show you here, we've got a few sample address books created, and the creation of an address book is basically just give us some information about this book, so a name and a description, and then whether or not it's available for everybody to use or it has to be specifically granted. And then once you've completed those, you can add addresses to that address book. And again, either manually or you can import them via CSV. So they're really easy to populate. And as I mentioned, you can assign those address books to different areas on your Infigo storefront, either individual users, customer roles, or in departments. So I'll take a look at a department as an example. So remember, departments are just groups of customers that are banded together. And within this section, for an individual department, you see there you just have the ability to assign an address book. And what that means is that any customer that's in that department will instantly get access to all of the addresses in that address book. How that looks on the front end. So if I just proceed through my initial part of my checkout, just to show this, the customer will have the ability to actually search through the addresses that are available to them. So you can see here they have a little drop down. They can either see a list of all of the addresses available to them, or they can search for an address that they want to utilize as well. Okay, so that's all I want to say on address books for now. The next thing is to actually start to look at sort of shipping and delivery a bit more. So shipping and delivery, you might have heard them used kind of interchangeably when we talk about Infigo. That's because how you will see that in your platform will depend on the region you're in. So if you're based in the UK or based in Europe, your settings will probably have delivery written in there. However, if you're in the US, where delivery isn't really used as much as a term, shipping is what you'll see as the relevant settings. So the first thing is inbuilt delivery or shipping methods. So Infigo's inbuilt methods provide administrators with really flexible options to define shipping costs. And primarily this is through either fixed price or price by weight configurations. So both of those names are fairly self-explanatory, but if I go to delivery, let's just go through the different delivery options that we have available. So we've got delivery settings. See if there's anything actually useful to show you in this particular one. Maybe not. Let's go to delivery computation. So you see here that we have fixed rate shipping, we have shipping by weight, and then we have a few other different things available in here as well. A few of them are sort of standard plugins that will provide you, allowing you to connect to specific carriers. And then something I'll come on to a little bit is our EasyPost plugin as well, but I'll get to that next. Just taking a look at fixed rate shipping and shipping by weight. Fixed rate, so basically you create a few different categories for your shipping. By default, your Infigo platform will have a first class and a second class in there, just to give you an example of it, basically. And then with fixed rate shipping, you're just assigning a price next to each of those selections. And it won't change based on how much they purchase, quantity, cost, whatever else. It is fixed rate, as the name suggests. So you're just assigning a price. The other option, which is a little bit more complex, but still quite easy to configure, is shipping by weight. So if I just go down to this section, go to configure, and now you can see I've put a couple of examples in there already. Maybe this storefront, by the way, might not be the tidiest you've ever seen. I've just tried to enable a lot of things for demonstration purposes on this webinar. So we'll give you an understanding, although it's not massively refined. So what you'll find is that we can create different tiers and different rates for different weight limits. And if you have a weight limit on a particular delivery option that you want to provide, you can create let's say, like for example, a delivery option shipped by weight. You say order weight from and order weight to, and then you can say either an absolute value for that delivery cost, or you can give it a percentage of the order subtotal. That will give you it between those weight limits, and then you can just repeat the process and create it again for a different weight limit. So the cost would increase or decrease based on the weight of the total order. Now, obviously, this gets paired with the fact that you have to provide weight information about your products. Now, this is quite easy to do. The first thing I'll mention is actually getting the units of your platform into the units that you want. So there is, if you type in measure, you should be able to get to either measure weights or measure dimensions. And that will just allow you to pick the units that you want to utilize. And then to actually assign weights or dimensional information to your actual products, if we locate that product in the product management, go to its product variant settings, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with by this point. Scroll down a little and you'll see there we have a section for weight. And then that will use that as in the calculation for the total weight of the order. And then subsequently, if you're using pricing, delivery pricing by weight, it'll take that into consideration as well. Now, I did mention the EasyPost plugin. So the EasyPost plugin is an additional paid module for Infigo, and it streamlines the shipping process by providing access to a wide range of delivery providers through just one single integration. So rather than having all these different potential providers or different methods that we need to configure, if we integrate with the EasyPost platform, it means that you can provide multiple different carriers using that one integration. So it acts as an intermediary integrator. EasyPost eliminates the need to build individual plugins for each carrier, as we have done for some of these, by handling all ongoing communications with them. The plugin serves two main purposes, really. So it allows you to fetch real-time shipping rates during the checkout process, and that uses EasyPost Rates API. So that will take into consideration things like obviously where the shipment is coming from, where it's going to, All those things will be factored in, and then the live pricing from the actual carriers themselves. And it can also be used to actually creating shipments with the corresponding shipping labels, and that's done via EasyPost Shipments API. So this integration doesn't only simplify obtaining shipping costs and labels, but it also automatically returns tracking details as well. So that allows for sort of quicker order handling and more efficient order handling. Now, the actual configuration, not going to lie, it can be a little bit fiddly to set up to begin with, just because there's a lot of things to consider as you're setting up your EasyPost configuration. But if I just go to show you the kind of settings that are available. So I'm just going to go and configure my EasyPost configuration. Primarily what you're doing is just feeding connection details between the two. So you'll have an API key, and you can use a test environment in here as well if you want to utilize test. Then you've got things such as the ability to implement additional shipping fees. You can specify whether orders are created or labels are created automatically when an order is placed, or whether they're done manually. Loads of different things, such as selecting the available providers and available rates and all that kind of stuff. How that actually appears to the end user. So again, if I go and continue through my checkout process, it just includes it within the delivery selection screen as part of their checkout process. So you see, in this case, it's taking a little bit longer to actually proceed to that step, as you might normally have seen. And that is simply because we're requesting that information from EasyPost for all of those shipping bits of information. Now, as I say, I've not configured this with a massive amount of grace. So we're seeing a lot of different options available and a lot of different pricing. But you can see the kind of things that are available. So I've got a few options up here, which are my basic pricing options, so my basic delivery, which we discussed earlier on, and then all of these subsequent ones which have been drawn in from or via EasyPost. So for the customer, there's no change. They just select the one they want to use and proceed through the checkout process. What that will do, so I've completed a previous order here. That will actually go and send that via the API into EasyPost. If you configured it to do so, it will create a label, and then it will actually send that any relevant information back into Infigo as well. So if I have a look in my shared print operations, which again we'll get to a bit later on, let me just go to storefront. You can see there in the status, we've got entries related to shipment created. And then I've also got these tracking numbers, which have been fed back into Infigo from EasyPost. Right. It's going to move on so we get through all the topics. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is delivery restrictions and production restrictions. So some of you may have noticed as I was proceeding through this step, and again, not very gracefully configured, but it gets the point across, is at the bottom here, I've got the ability to show when that order is going to be dispatched, when it's going to be delivered. You can see this in multiple different places. So from the end user side of things, you might have a countdown on the actual product itself to show when they need to order by for it to be delivered by a certain date. So we should be able to see that on here. Or of course, you want to be able to track that within your admin side of things as well. So you want to know when the package should be dispatched by and when it should be delivered by. And you need to control this kind of information via these production or delivery restrictions. They're both kind of similar. You're giving the ability, well, you're giving different methods of offset, essentially. So you're specifying if a certain product has a certain production restriction applied, maybe that product has a lead time of 3 days, and maybe that lead time should not include weekends. So we need to consider that automatically so that the information that gets fed to the user and gets fed into our system is correct in terms of when they can expect their order. So if I find one of those, let's go to production restrictions. You can see I've created a basic example here. And what we're looking at is really quite simple. So you're specifying a deadline hour if it's a production restriction. So they need to order before this time to get the benefit of the 2 days, for example. Otherwise, it'll be another day pushed back. And then you can specify if there's offset tiers, so if a certain quantity will change the offset, or you can specify if certain days should not be taken into consideration as well. Delivery restrictions are very, very similar to this. And then on both of them, you also have the ability to put a calendar in there as well. So this is very useful if there's additional days in which either delivery or production is not going to happen and need to automatically be considered. So let's say you're not working certain holidays or something like that, you can consider those. Those are created very simply, and I won't go through it in detail, in the Manage Calendars section. And you're just selecting days that you don't want to include. Okay, so where those are applied, production restrictions are applied within the products themselves, or you can apply them to a group, for example. So in the product variant settings, you can specify the production restrictions. And then the delivery restrictions will be applied on the different delivery methods, like we discussed earlier on.